Okay. Hi, Mari. How are you doing today? We'll get started now. For everybody that's just joining us, I wanted to introduce you to Mari Ryan. She is the CEO of Advancing Wellness, and she's just written a new book that's called The Thriving Hive, How People-Centric Workplaces Ignite Engagement and Fuel Results. And it tells the story of two different kinds of workplaces that she tells in kind of a parable form. So she'll get into the story in a little bit, but I just wanted to ask you, Mari, it's such an intriguing topic, title of a book, and yeah, I think it's right for the times, you know, in the era of diversity and inclusion for sure, but more than that, just employee well-being. We haven't heard much in the past about employee well-being. It's more about employee wellness and making sure that we lower our health, you know, companies control their healthcare costs, which is important. But this seems to take another turn. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about why you decided to write this book at this time. And it'll provide some nice context for people listening who are really interested in well-being and really not sure about what well-being can do for the bottom line. So feel free to share away with us on why you decided to write this book.
Well, it was something that had been percolating for a long time. I had planned to write a book. Like so many things in life, you just have to make the time and find the time to do it. And this was the year where I had just finished up a multi-year project that we'd been working with a client on, and the time finally became available. But I'd actually started researching this back in 2015. I started by doing some interviews with CEOs and asked them a series of questions about what their experience was in creating high-performance workplaces. And those interviews were really the foundation of the context of which the Thriving Hive is set.
Oh, that's great. So doing a series of interviews, that was a while ago. It was a couple years ago or so, and then you got the story together.
Well, I started writing in January, and I knew I wanted to write a parable. So all along when I thought about writing a book, I knew I wanted to write a parable because stories are such a powerful format for us to learn and for us to be able to be entertained at the same time that we're learning. And I've always loved parables. I probably read, and I have on my bookshelf here, a dozen parables that I read as part of my research, of what does a story format look like, and how do you have it all play out in a story format. And from that perspective, I really knew that was what I wanted to do. But I started writing in January. I did the interview several years ago, had been doing lots of other research, but I started writing in January, had the first draft done by the middle of March and the second draft done by the end of May.
Wow,
so it moved pretty quickly. Yeah, it moved pretty quickly.
So you had decided this is how you were going to spend the beginning of the year
yes.
in writing,
yeah.
which is fabulous.
I think that's my major project. Yeah.
That's what it takes. So as you started to write, I'm sure based on your background and the kind of consulting work that you've done in the employee wellness space, you started to see a pattern of this shift from wellness to well-being. But what we've heard about in the press a lot lately is how well-being actually contributes to the bottom line in a different way than a focus on employee wellness. Can you explain how employee wellness revitalizes a company? Well-being. How employee well-being revitalizes a company, because I haven't necessarily, or the idea is that wellness, while it's important, doesn't necessarily, we haven't heard that being necessarily part of the revitalization or innovation or culture part of a conversation.
Well, let's first make the distinction between wellness and well-being. So I think if we can define that, I think that's going to help. Because workplace wellness has been around for decades. I actually was just writing a blog about this. It's actually been around, for a very, very long time. Employers have been concerned about the health and well-being of their workforce. But wellness really came out of more of a medical model. It was about reducing risks. We would measure risks through instruments like a health risk assessment, and then institute programs that would help reduce those risks. So helping people lose weight, or to stop using tobacco, or to reduce their blood pressure, or manage diabetes. So it was around managing risks. And over time, what we've really seen is that there is more to who we are than just our physical selves. A lot of our health obviously is based on our physical, how this physical aspect of our bodies manifests. But there's so much more to us than that. And a few years ago, I think it's probably actually, 6 or more years ago now, the Gallup organization came out with a model that they called the well-being model, and it had 5 dimensions to it. And these dimensions were very well researched through the work that they do in their national surveys that they do on a daily basis. And the elements are physical, so there was a physical aspect to it, but there's also community, connection, the financial well-being, and then at the core of it is purpose, and purpose being more tied to what motivates us to get out of bed every day and to go about our lives and to take responsibility for aspects of what we're doing every day. So that model has really led us more towards looking at well-being. And when we think about this in the context of how this can help revitalize a company, if we think about employees as truly the most important asset in any organization, business leaders recognize they can't achieve their business objectives without a healthy, engaged workforce. And while 5 years ago, I might have been working with clients to be able to help them with their wellness program, and it was focused on managing healthcare costs, today when I'm engaging with clients, it's much more around this all-encompassing aspect of well-being, the whole person who shows up at the workplace, and that connection that they have to their family and the community. And it's focused much more on engagement and culture in the workplace. And all of those elements, when we have engaged employees, when we have them really working towards the mission and purpose of that organization, when they're communicated to in proper ways so that they know what's going on, when they feel part of something that's bigger than themselves, that all translates to the bottom line results.
Absolutely. It sounds like it's more of an approach that's woven into more of the fabric of the company, if you will, because the fabric is people. It's
exactly.
More,
always
people-centric.
Right. Hence people-centric, right? It's all about the people, right? It's, if we don't think about how we're caring for people and giving them the opportunity to be better every day that they're at work, then we're not doing them, justice, and we're not doing the organization justice either.
Right. Well, this is exciting for women, especially in our generation, shall I say, because in the past, it hasn't always been that way, right? It's been a very much more, as you call it, the Hive kind of approach was just, I wouldn't say enjoyed, but accepted. It was an accepted mode of leadership style that kind of came down from the military, history,
exactly.
Right? So it was
exactly.
It was different, and the medical model really suits that. So employee wellness was kind of filtered down. It was in alignment with the medical, how the medical system works too. Well, what companies, now that we're talking about companies, and since you do work with so many, are there some that really rise to the top in terms of being pioneers in the area of employee well-being, and that other companies, and as I share this information with HR directors and CEOs, which are the companies that they can look to for guidance?
Some of the companies that we might think about in terms of, role models for well-being probably are going to be the larger companies that are in the press a lot. almost every company, large company especially, has some sort of a wellness or well-being focused program. And Johnson & Johnson, as an example, is one that is very well known for the work they've been doing. But they've been doing this for decades because it's so core to who they are and the mission of their organization. And in the large organizations, and the organizations, the Googles, the Apples, the high-tech companies, we hear about them all the time because they've got, quite honestly, they've got a lot of money, so they're spending it on their people. I was at the Google offices in Cambridge recently and noticed a number of things in the physical layout of the workspaces and the conference areas and the baristas at the coffee bar and the green space that was right outside the door on the top floor of the parking garage that was a park. All of those aspects that make for a warm, comfortable environment in which to work. But there was also elements of policies in the workplace that support well-being. There were babies and there were dogs. And, those are workplace policies that can support the individual well-being of those employees. So the big companies really do this well. There are small companies, and here in Massachusetts, we actually have the Worksite Wellness Council of Massachusetts, which gives awards each year. They just gave their awards in October to Massachusetts employers that are doing a really good job with managing the health and well-being of their workforce. And that's something you could easily find that I think there were like 36 award winners this year, and several of our clients were actually in those award winners. And that's, again, the Worksite Wellness Council of Massachusetts. You can find those listings. So we have lots of great role models for this. The reality is that many small businesses, because they may not have the resources to be able to put towards these kinds of programs, may not be doing quite as much. But they still, in some cases, we're seeing really good examples of even smaller organizations putting forth efforts in this way.
Sure. Well, that's exciting. Well, listen, I really want to give people a chance now to take a look at you, to have access to your book. How can they get a hold of it?
The book is available on Amazon, and it is in 3 formats. It is available in ebook, paperback, and also available on Audible. You can buy that actually through, you'll find that also on Amazon. And it's also a special color version is now available on Barnes & Noble.
Excellent. Well, this will be wonderful for people who are, like I said, I'm excited about expanding the reach of this. I think the time has come for companies to really embrace employee well-being. I think it's been under the auspices of EAP for a while, and not all companies know what that is or how wonderful those benefits can be. And this is a much bigger expansion on that, a different approach anyways.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for sharing about your book. And for everybody, again, it's The Thriving Hive, How People-Centric Workplaces Ignite Engagement and Fuel Results. So thank you, Mari, for joining me here. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Kelley.
Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.